Thursday here in downtown Charlottesville. Certainly that fall crisp is in the air, which I very much enjoy. Our audience is Charlottesville-wide and Central Virginia-wide, Commonwealth country and worldwide. This program, the I Love CVille Show, is presented by the Clifton. The Clifton in Keswick has a fantastic Thursday music series, and tonight's Thursday, so we encourage you at 6 p.m. to head to the Clifton for Gallatin Canyon, bluegrass music, happy hour, some fantastic food, and some fellowship with friends and strangers in a welcoming setting. It's dynamite. It's just absolutely dynamite. Meg Bryce is our guest. Moms and dads watching the program, I think you're going to appreciate this interview. I certainly, in the about 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes of talking with Meg for the first time, see her confidence and her conviction and her courage and chutzpah. And when it comes down to it, all we want as parents is what's best for our kids. I mean, that's literally all we want. And as I've gotten older, and gone from a single man to a married man to a father of one and soon to a father of two, my view on life has changed. And as you guys know, kids become your world, and it's less about you and more about them. And you just want what's best for these unjaded, impressionable pieces of your heart. And I think any mom and dad can relate to that. I want to highlight this while I talk often about the plight we're facing as a couple, my wife and I, with our son and our son that's coming on Thanksgiving. It is more than that, and it's about the children in Albemarle County Public Schools, Charlottesville Public Schools, the school systems in the area. The firsthand perspective is not just about us. I know others are feeling this as well. I'd like to get Joey in the mix off the bat for about 90 seconds before we welcome Meg Bryce. Joey Rifkin, if we could go to the two-shot. Andy Argod promised us Detroit-style pizza. He promised it at 12 o'clock. He's a product of the Albemarle County Public School System. What did you see transpire today?
Well, I can definitely tell you the Albemarle County Public School System didn't teach him his punctuality. He was very on time. Pizza in hand. Absolutely phenomenal. I must say, pineapple on pizza, I'm here for it. Thank you, Andy. You've changed my opinion. The pineapple jalapeno pizza was absolutely fantastic. Jerry and I both crushed that. Hope you get a lot of business out of this, and I hope more people get to try your pizza because more people need to eat it.
Very well said, my friend. Scott Aaronworth, yes, you will love it. And those watching the program, Andy Argod, and it's A Squared Pizza.
A Squared Pizza on Instagram, all spelled out, all lowercase.
There you go. Thank you, Joey. We'll post photos later. Joey, if we could, welcome Meg to the program. And Meg, I highlighted you as someone with confidence, courage, conviction, thick skin, vision, leadership. I've known you in real life for about 20 minutes, and I could tell those qualities immediately. I'd love to get out of your way and stop talking. How about an introduction with you first before we get into the nitty-gritty?
Sure. So thanks for having me, Jerry.
Sure.
So I have my husband and I have 4 kids, and 3 of them are school age. We've got a 5th grader, 3rd grader, and a new kindergartner, and we've got a 1.5-year-old. We had kids in public schools in Ivy for 4 years. So our oldest was at Murray Elementary for kindergarten through 3rd grade. Our second child was there kindergarten through 2nd. I want to preface this and like everything I'm going to say today by saying that we had an extraordinary experience at Murray. I will sing that school's praises till my dying days. The teachers there, the staff, they're phenomenal. I love them. I admire them. I hope that they know that. I think that they do because I have said so to them. So leaving that school, I don't feel that we left that school. I feel that we left Albemarle County Public Schools. I feel that we left a superintendent and a school board who were no longer representing us, and that we felt we could no longer trust as stewards of our children's education.
Very well said. In a lot of ways, you moved to your home for these schools.
We did.
Is that fair?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're in real estate. You know that that's how it works for a lot of families. When our oldest was about 2 months old, or maybe 3 months old, we bought our house for that particular elementary school, for Murray Elementary. And I remember a few weeks after we moved in, there was like a neighborhood-wide email that went out about, hey, you know, there's this redistricting meeting going on. And I saw the email and was like, because like we had just bought a house for that school. And I was like, no, you can't redistrict us. And I made my husband go to the meeting, and he's meeting all these people for the first time, and they're like, so you have kids in schools? And he's like, well, not yet, you know, and they asked, how old are your kids? And he's like, 3 months, and, you know, I'm sure he looked insane. But public schools are important to me, and they're important to my husband. So we always thought we would send our kids to public school. It was just a given that, like, we would find the best public schools in the area, and we would support them, and we would be glad to send our kids there.
You mentioned in your opening that you, and these are my words, paraphrasing, have been disappointed or disenchanted or felt let down by the superintendent and the school board. Mm-hmm. Put that in perspective for us.
So I have always been happy with the people, like the boots on the ground people, you know.
Frontline.
Like, exactly.
Yeah.
All the teachers, all the staff, could not respect them more and could not appreciate them more. But then COVID, right? And I think COVID opened up a lot of people's eyes, because a lot of us, you know, after the spring when schools were closed, then the summer came and a lot of us were like, okay, like, what's the plan? You know, what's the plan? How are we going to get our kids back in school? And we kind of gave everybody a pass on the spring, and I could see how hard our teachers were working. I really could. Like, I could see them in their videos, and I was like, my gosh, they are like, I can see they're staying up late, they're exhausted, and they're trying so hard to do right by these kids. And I felt like then it's the district's responsibility, right? It's their responsibility to give these teachers the support to get school open. So that's when a lot of parents, I think, started tuning in more to what was going on in the school district. A lot of us started, and shame on us for not having been tuned in before.
That's when I started tuning in.
Right. I think that's true for so many of us. But shame on us for not being tuned in before, because as it turns out, a lot of the problems had started years ago. And you've mentioned that, right? That it's like, it's the same people who've been in these positions of authority for years.
Almost a decade.
Right.
Some longer than a decade. So
Yeah.
the passing of the buck to previous regimes no longer applies.
No, not at all. And there's been a downward trend for quite some time, and most of us didn't know it because we weren't paying attention. But then we started paying attention. And my first frustration was, you know, COVID policies, and that they were slow to open schools. And, you know, that's kind of when I got in the fight. And then as I started tuning in more and really paying attention to school board meetings and communicating with my school board rep and all of that, you know, I saw the red flags. And I saw that a lot of parents weren't being represented, and they were being ignored, sometimes pleasantly ignored, other times just really rudely dismissed.
How so?
I mean, I have seen some nasty exchanges between school board representatives and parents, in which parents are, you know, their questions are deemed uncalled for. You know, I think as a parent in this community,
Any question applies.
right?
Any question, I don't mean to interrupt you here. I've gotten that so much, and
Yeah.
I got to be straightforward here. I've gotten some nastiness.
Yep.
Okay? And I'm going to say this, I'll say it again. And when it comes to our son, any question that I have, I'm going to ask.
Right.
Is that fair?
Oh, of course. And the fact is that, like, these people, they were elected. You know, they're not this isn't like an HOA board. They're not volunteers in your neighborhood.
They're paid?
They are paid. They're not getting wealthy off of it.
Right.
But they're paid because we recognize that this is a job. and they are doing a job for us. So that doesn't mean that you can treat them like dirt. Of course not. Nobody should treat them like dirt. But what I have seen is my friends giving very respectful emails to people and getting pretty rude and nasty responses. Both from Haas and from school board representatives being told, that their questions or comments were uncalled for. Haas very condescendingly wrote to a friend, "I'm sorry if you missed that reference," and then said, "I hope in the future you will do such and such before you reach conclusions that are not warranted." I mean, these are just nasty things. And then one school board representative even went so far as to say to one of the moms in his community, who had absolutely been a thorn in his side. She had been. She was asking a lot of questions. But I've seen all of her emails, and not once did she cross a line. Not once was she rude. And her representative responded to her by essentially saying, well, why don't you leave? Why don't you leave the school district? If this is really what you think of us, why don't you leave the school district? So she did. I mean, she moved out of the district. And that's not the only family I know that's done that. I know a handful of families who have moved out of Albemarle County for the sole reason of getting out of our school system. And they have, I'm so impressed by the amount of research that they have put into that decision. And all of us who own homes, who have children, you know how big of an undertaking that is to pick your family up and move them. But these families thought that this was so important, and they felt so dismissed by our school board and our superintendent that they picked up and moved. And they still work in Charlottesville, but they found the school district, a neighboring school district that they thought offered the best education, and they commute back. One of them, even was like meeting with superintendents of neighboring counties to ask questions and say, like, how do you approach this and how do you approach that? And made really informed decisions about where they would live.
Which trend concerns you the most? And we've highlighted many of them. We've highlighted bus driver shortages, kids in Albemarle County, Greenwood and Afton, for example, are arriving to school 2 hours late, and they're getting home 2 hours late. They're literally missing a third of the school year if this continues, which is terrifying. That's one trend. Second trend, teachers are quitting. They're leaving the school system and they're heading for private schools. Third trend that's very concerning, and a microcosm of this, is Western Albemarle High School and Henley Middle School. Literally, for a long period of time, the best performing public schools in Albemarle County public school system, their enrollment is dropping at Western, the high school, and Henley, the middle school. That's another concerning trend.
I've heard that Western's enrollment has dropped so much that they're going to have to drop down a division in athletics.
I've heard the same. When you're competing in the Virginia High School League, the VHSL, your classification is based on student body size. She's exactly right. Another concerning trend we have is the prioritization, or the lack thereof, of limited taxpayer dollars. And I've highlighted this, and I've caught heat. For things like rebranding instead of paying bus drivers more money to attract more drivers. A microcosm of this is Louisa County Public School System has a full fleet of drivers, while Albemarle County Public School System does not. Another concerning trend, which we highlighted on the I Love CVille Network, was the performance of third graders across the Albemarle County Public School System from an SOL standpoint, math performance, and frankly, the performance of third graders that are Hispanic or African American. I mean, it is
the very population that they say that they're helping.
Exactly right. She said it perfectly. So you have a school system that is top 10% in the Commonwealth with per pupil spending, yet the enrollment is dropping, the teachers are quitting, the bus drivers are not there, and the population of students we're trying to help are not getting the resources they need.
Right. You mentioned per pupil spending. I would love for your listeners to know exactly what that is.
Please.
So in the fiscal year 2022 to 2023 budget for Albemarle County, the per pupil allotment is $18,000. That's a lot of money. I mean, that's more than our private school tuition. It's a lot of money. So where is that going? And by the way, that's up from, I think 13 last year, so it's up a considerable amount. And I'd like to know, like, that, if I'm right, where is that $5,000 going? And do parents feel that they are getting $5,000 more in education for their child this year? I find it hard to believe that they do. I find it hard to believe that parents are feeling that difference at all, parents of public school children.
So why don't we...
You asked what my biggest concern
Yes.
is. It's hard to... I have so many, Jerry. It's really...
The show is yours. We have plenty of time. Plenty of time.
It's really hard to choose. Gosh. I think in general, my biggest concern is whether these people are good stewards of the money.
And you're talking school board and superintendent?
School board, superintendent, yeah.
Okay.
Whether they're good stewards of the money. When people say that public schools are underfunded, I'm not sure they realize how much money public schools have. And I don't think that throwing more money at public schools is going to solve any of our problems. I think that we are mismanaging the money that we have. $18,000 a student is a lot. If private schools can make it work for that, so should public schools. And I do recognize that public schools offer a lot of services that private schools don't. I understand that. But let's talk about the extra money that Albemarle County has received in the past couple years. So they got, from the American Rescue Plan for elementary and secondary school emergency relief, they got $11.5 million. That is, I mean, to me, like, that's monopoly money. How do you even decide where to spend that? And they allocated, so the idea, theoretically, of that money is to catch kids up on lost learning from COVID, right?
That is the idea.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you know how much they allocated?
Please, tell us.
$3.9 million.
What happened to the rest of the money?
Right. They only allocated $3.9 million to address lost learning. Not even half. Like, where is the rest going?
Where's the rest going?
Well, I'll tell you. One
Love
of the
this.
things.
You were prepared.
Oh,
Always. I get the impression you're prepared at everything.
I brought receipts.
I see that.
So on their website, they have a number of things that they say. So ACPS has organized our response to the impacts of COVID-19 on our community students according to the following 3 phases. The first is relief. The second is recovery. You can look those up. I don't take huge issues with those. The third that I take issue with is rebuilding. So this is supposed to be relief money to catch kids up from like a year and a half of lost learning. And this is their third priority. Redesign the system to focus on nurturing the whole child, balancing cognitive with socio-emotional skill development, and ensuring that all children have access to the conditions and resources that enhance learning and development. That's just like, to me, that's just a word salad.
That is word salad.
Of like, we're gonna like set aside this money to kind of spend however we want. And that's not okay with me. You know, like, you got $11.5 million, you better account for it. Where exactly is it going? And I don't think they do that. And you've caught on to this with the rebranding or the renaming. And you've been taking them to task for that and asking how much money has been...
I just want to know the dollars, and
right.
I can't get a straight answer.
And it's weird,
yeah.
because that should be easy.
Right.
It should be a budget line.
Please explain what you did looking for it.
Sure, yeah, I went through their website exhaustively, like looking at their budgets. I mean, I have spent way too much time on this.
Same, me too.
Right, and you know, so you had that person text you earlier to say, like, make this about all kids, not just your kids. I don't have skin in the game anymore. Like, we pulled our kids out of public school, and I'm still in this fight because this is about all kids. And not everybody, like, we are lucky to be able to send our kids to private school when we weren't happy with public school anymore. But I recognize that not everybody can do that. So I'm still in this fight. So yeah, I went through the budget and tried very hard to find some line item about rebranding, renaming, name review. I tried all different searches and I found nothing. And this has been like a concerted effort. I mean, this was one of their pet projects, you know? They love this project. So you'd think that it would be
front and center.
Front and center.
Yeah, and that seems like common sense.
Right.
And common sense person right here, and Meg, common sense person and yours truly, questions are coming in fast and furious. We can ask questions to Meg and I don't even mind if we're challenged. She doesn't mind if we're challenged. It's got to be done in respectful fashion. Folks okay, so I posted screenshots from an exchange I had with Dr. Matthew Haas, who is agreeable to the screenshots email that I posted. He has given his word as a man of character that he will deliver the results associated with rebranding with Mountain View Elementary, formerly known as Kale, Journey Middle School, formerly known as Jack Jewett, Lakeside Middle School, formerly known as Sutherland, and Community Lab, formerly known as Murray High School. Here's what I found extremely odd with Superintendent Matthew Haas's response to my email. He says, this may take a little bit longer because these costs are not in one database, contained in one database. And I found that, I read that, and I was like, first, what does this mean, that the costs aren't in one database? And then secondly, I'm like, does that mean that these rebranding costs are coming from various different pots of money utilized to keep the school in operation? And then I'm like, why would they not just say the rebranding comes from the rebranding fund and put it all in one line item? And then I'm like, why can't we find this online? I've spent hours looking at this. Brittany Gray, who watches the program, who's working, she's in law school, trying to be an attorney, has spent hours. She spent hours. I've had 2 Esquires who do this professionally offer their pro bono services to us, parents in the school, a mom and a dad, that are asking the same questions. Doesn't it not, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but like when taxpayer dollars, Meg, are not clearly identified where they are and how they're spent and the totality of they are, isn't it just natural to start jumping to conclusions of like, what's going on here?
Right, and like, you know, in a family, when you know that you bring in a certain amount of money every year,
you have a budget.
Family, individual, whatever, you have a budget, and you're like, you set aside, and you're like, okay, this is how much. Like my husband and I, we desperately need to replace our decks. Like they're rotting and they're dangerous and it's terrible, but it's not in our budget. So I'd like to know what the budget was for the renaming, and there doesn't seem to be one. You know, somebody should be able to say like, yes, we set aside this amount of money. And so, you know, we formed these committees and we told them like, you have this amount of money to achieve this result. But there's nothing. And it seems like they're just throwing money at problems and not even the biggest problems.
Right?
Right. Like we've got bigger fish to fry.
We got a lot of comments coming in. Are you ready for some?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll go to...
But then I do want to talk about my experience with renaming at our former school.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Erin Farmer, welcome to the program. She's loving what she's hearing right now. Katie Pearl, we love you. Guys, like and share the show, and please encourage your parents and your friends and your family to watch the broadcast. If you have questions, we will mention them live on air. Cindy Riggs, hello. Sharon Fix, hello. A lot of folks watching the broadcast. We'll go to Bobby Yarborough in Redfields. He says, Meg mentioned a couple of times that folks contacted school board members and the Albemarle County Public School staffers with questions and received unsatisfactory responses. What were those questions about? Was it school bus schedules, COVID, curriculum? Please offer some more perspective. He is a father of a product of the Albemarle County Public School system.
So most of these questions were about curriculum. A lot of these questions were probably when schools were still closed, so it wouldn't have been about buses. I think a lot of them were curriculum or policy questions. One friend actually tried to submit a curriculum complaint. I think there's like a formal process to submit a curriculum complaint about something. This was at Henley, and it was like, you know, part of the pilot program that they were running there. But she was told that she could not submit a curriculum complaint because technically what she was complaining about wasn't part of the curriculum, it was part of the advisory period. So she's like, so then how do I? how do I, you know, file a formal complaint about this? So it's, you know, you say you're not a conspiracy theorist. That, to me, is like, why did they make this part of the advisory period and then tell parents, oh, sorry, you can't submit a complaint about it because it's not part of the curriculum?
Exactly. And how about this? Vanessa Parkhill put this on my radar. with Jack Jewett Middle School.
Mm-hmm.
Where
parents did not want the name changed. And they just steamrolled through that.
This is so crazy. This legitimately happened. This is easily found on the internet, on the Albemarle County School Board website. This is easy to find. Jack Jewett parents, middle school, were surveyed. And the survey said, do you, yes, want to keep the name Jack Jewett, or do you, no, want to rebrand it? 74.9% of the parents said keep the name. 74.9. They changed the name regardless of basically 75% parents saying keep the name. Here's the second craziest thing. Journey Middle School was the 4th selection from the parents. It wasn't the first selection, the second selection, the third selection, it was the 4th. So why is Albemarle County, the superintendent's office, and the school board offering these surveys if they're just going to ignore them in the first place? That seems like, and I believe you said this off air before the show started, like a dog and pony show.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, they have a history of this. They have done this in so many different ways. There was one really egregious case of it. I want to pull up the details on this because it gets me pretty fired up. So there was a policy that ACPS was releasing for public comment. They knew it was going to be controversial, so they allowed an especially long comment period. They issued a press release and they set the expectations for the comment period. They said that there would be a one-way live stream to present the policy. So one way, you couldn't comment on it then. They made sure of that. But they would set up a separate email where people could submit their questions or feedback or whatever. So Albemarle County created a brand new email address just for people to comment on this policy. And they said all questions will be answered and posted online prior to the school board meeting. So they promised that, right? All questions, that was their wording. All questions and answers would be posted online before the school board meeting. You know, theoretically, for the school board members to read them before they voted. So then a lot of us watched the school board meeting and saw what was posted online, and we were like, my question's not in there. Why isn't my question in there? They said it would be in there. And so a friend of mine FOIA'd them to ask for all of the emails sent to that email address. And here's what they found. So the county only posted 16 frequently asked questions. That's what they posted. They said they were going to post all of them. They only posted 16 what they called frequently asked questions. So that didn't seem complete, so somebody FOIA'd them, and they found that of those 16 frequently asked questions, only 8 of them were actually asked. 8 of those questions were made up. Basically, it's
Did you hear that, Joey?
It's what the county wanted to tell us, right? It's what they were like, well, nobody asked this, but we think they should know. We know best, right?
That's terrifying.
Only 3 of the 16 questions were asked more than 5 times. And a representative for ACPS, when somebody reached out and said, hey, how come there's so few questions posted on here? She was like, well, it was really my purview, and I decided I had a cutoff of 5. If a question was asked 5 times, I considered it to be frequently asked. Only 3 of those were asked more than 5 times. So in the FOIA, it was revealed that there were 35 unique email threads to this special email account. 16 of them contained support of the policy. The remaining emails contained about 100 questions or concerns about the policy. And here's how they responded. Over 90% of them got a canned response, thank you for your email. 8 submissions received no response whatsoever, even when people followed up to ask about it. And then several other submissions received no response until complaints were lodged. So basically until somebody followed up and was like, hey, you never answered my question. And those responses only came in after the school board voted.
Oh my gosh.
So essentially the school board did not see all of this.
How do you characterize that kind of behavior? How would you characterize that? Or management is a better word.
It's dishonest.
Disingenuous.
It's incredibly dishonest. And I like to believe that we all have the same goals for our children.
The best for our kids.
Right. I like to believe that we all have the same goals. We just disagree on the methods. We disagree on the means of achieving those goals. But stuff like this makes that really hard to believe.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's extremely well said. We have so many comments coming in. Let's go to YouTube here, where Fatina Burns is watching, and she says this, and we appreciate the comments coming in from her. We noticed the downward trend a few years before COVID when the county started de-leveling, and we approached our administrators expressing our concern regarding this change, and we were promised that teachers would be able to differentiate, but as hard as they tried and as amazing as all of these teachers were, it was not possible. Academic rigor and a focus on academic excellence was our main concern, and it was clear that Albemarle County Public Schools were not it. We eventually decided to do what was best for our family and move out of Albemarle County altogether. So I want to emphasize this, and she's adding more here. We could not be happier with our new school system, from teachers up to the superintendent. They are incredible. I want to highlight this. The downward trend of performance in the Albemarle County Public School System not only impacts our children, the loves of our life, the next generation, but it is also impacting things like money allocation from the Commonwealth of Virginia. As student bodies decrease, the Commonwealth allocates less money to the school systems because Commonwealth allocations are based on student body enrollment. Furthermore, it could legitimately have an impact on tax revenue if folks choose to move out of the area to other districts, right, meaning less revenue for the jurisdiction. Third, there is now a trend that needs to be considered around certain schools where the buses are so delayed. The concern is, will real estate values be impacted because children and their families are spending 2 hours waiting out in the freezing cold for a bus? You might not want to live in that particular area of the county because your son or daughter is not going to have the best quality of life from an educational standpoint. So there is a number of snowball impacts here. Sarah Hill Buchensky in the Crozet area says, great job, Meg. You're absolutely killing it right now. Give her some props. Ask her some questions by putting it in the feed. Show us
Jerry,
yours.
Jerry,
please.
Another thing I want to say about the buses, and this is a problem that I see again and again in the county. The county is very proud of being focused on equity. Who do you think suffers most when
the kids on the financial margin?
When school buses don't show
Yeah.
up. It's not the people with parents of means who have flexible work schedules, who are like, it's okay, I can get you to school. It's the people whose parents have hourly jobs that they cannot miss. And so they may have already left for the morning. They don't even know that the bus didn't come for their kid. We are not serving those people that the district is supposedly so intent on serving.
You're so well said.
As they should be. They should be intent on serving them. But it's not working.
And put it in perspective. If you're a third grader in Albemarle County Public Schools and you are getting to school 2 hours late, and you're one of the third graders that rank in the bottom 11% of all Virginia public schools for black third grade math students, these are SOL scores, and you're missing math class,
right?
How do you close the gap?
Right.
If you're missing school and not getting to school on time, how can we close the educational equity gap? And I want to get you back in the mix here, highlighting Murray, your school,
okay,
and the name.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, several years ago, the district decided that every school in the district would go under, that every school that was named after an individual would go under a mandatory name review to see if the individual for whom the school was named, if their reputation or whatever aligned with the values of the school. So the first one, I think, to go under review was Kale. And Kale was changed to Mountain View. The second one was Sutherland. That was changed to Lakeside. Murray, where I had kids at the time, was the third one to go up for review. At the time, I was like, of course we're the next. Like, they've already had 2 schools renamed. They kind of want, they want an easy one this time that's not going to be renamed. And here's why. Murray is named after Virginia Murray, who was an extraordinary woman. She was born... I think, late 1800s, a black woman who went to college, got her master's degree. I mean, she had all the cards stacked against her, and she was a force, right? She's somebody who, as a parent at that school, I was incredibly proud to have her as a role model for my daughters. Like, nobody wanted the name of this school changed. And the other thing about the history of Murray is that Murray was built for black students in the 1960s when they were not allowed to go to school with white students. They weren't allowed to go to Meriwether Lewis. So Murray was a school built for the black population, named after a black woman, and an ACPS went through the charade of considering renaming it. I mean, shame on you if you rename the school, if you take that name off of that school. So it was announced, it was October 2020 that the school board announced that Murray was the next school up for review. October 2020, we were all still fully virtual. So imagine how I, as a parent, felt when the school board was like, great news, Murray, you're up for a name review. And I was like, cool. Hey, when do you think my kids can get back in school?
Yeah.
Like maybe we could focus on that instead. But they had a process. And so every school had to go through the process, no matter how absurd. So they sent out a survey. And in the survey, it wasn't just an up-down vote, like, do you want the school to be renamed? In the survey, they had to say, they had to give other options. And I can't remember now, I don't have it written here, but, the initial survey results showed over 90% support to keep the name. I don't even know who the other 10% are. They must be total jerks to have not wanted to keep the name. But over 90% wanted to keep the name. However, there's a set Albemarle County process which requires alternate names to be presented. So like 90% wanted to keep the name, but we had to vote on alternatives. Like, this is just so inefficient. It is a waste of time.
Yes.
It is a waste of money. And I would love to say how much money was wasted.
But we don't know.
But I have no idea. Now, what really infuriated me is that, we started getting emails like, would you like to be on the name review committee and things like that? And I was like, no, this is ridiculous. Keep the name. I will say that what Murray ended up doing with the process was really beautiful, and not surprising given the teachers there. They turned it into a great learning experience for the kids. They had kids involved on a committee, and so the kids, researched Virginia Murray. They researched the history of the school, and the school now has, I think, I haven't been in, but I saw a picture somewhere. I think they have a big mural of Virginia Murray, kind of like her history, and I think the history of the school as well. So the outcome of that is wonderful. But I don't think that they had to do like this whole horse and pony show of the name review to do that. I think the teachers could have done that, and maybe they did need funding to do that, but I think they could have done that separate from a whole district-wide name review process.
Well said.
And it was just insulting to be doing that at a time when they could not get our schools open.
Very well said. Jason Howard in Elf Rio Road. We've dubbed him the King of Rio. He says, my wife and I watched the school board meeting before the beginning of the school year. To maintain a virtual school option, several English as a second language and special education positions were moved to the virtual school rosters, taking funding away from the students who need it the most help. Mm-hmm. To your point about 2-hour bus drives, when we start getting foul weather this winter, will the county decide to cancel school entirely because students will be waiting outside for 2 hours in 20-degree weather? I want to say we had 10 or 11 days of school that were delayed because of ice or snow this winter. If this winter isn't any worse, that's about 2 weeks loss of school. So here's a very fair question. We have so many comments coming in here.
Our last year at in ACPS, the school was delayed one time because it was too cold.
Because it's too cold.
Too cold.
Now
Possibly.
Here's a legitimate question though. This is a fair question, and I'll throw it to you. Some days in the winter in the Charlottesville area, and folks, it's much colder in the Afton, Mountain area and the Greenwood area than it is in, Rio or Keswick. Okay, it's a mountain these kids are on. So if it's 15 degrees and the school bus is 2 hours late, will the school get canceled for that day because administrators don't want children standing in 15-degree weather outside for 2 hours?
I
bet you
think
it does.
so. I think so too. And to a certain extent, that's right. I mean, kids should not be
In 15-degree weather.
Elementary school children should not be standing outside,
Right.
In sub-freezing weather
For 2 hours.
For 2 hours, yeah.
Right.
So if the school can't guarantee that they're not going to be standing outside for 2 hours, then yeah, they're probably going to have to close.
Exactly right. So please consider that point. And I, in that particular circumstance, think the school should be canceled or delayed if you're asking 8-year-olds and 7-year-olds and 6-year-olds to stand in teen weathers that's in the teens. Okay?
Yep.
And that is literally the right decision, but a microcosm of the macro problem here that's going on. Cully Baggett is watching the program. This is causing a major snowball effect, and we have only begun to see the ramifications. I could not agree more that these behaviors will most certainly start to affect the county in more ways than people even foresee. It starts with local governments, and it ends with us citizens taking the real hits. People have got to get out and start voting in our smaller local elections,
Yes,
such as the Board of
absolutely.
Supervisors and school board members. We count on these people to govern and nurture and direct our communities, and they are failing us all. The money allocated for these name changes is utterly despicable when there are so many other pressing issues. Meg has a fan in me. People have to start standing up just as this mom is doing right now. So let me ask you this question, and here's a very tough question. Should the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors hold yearly Albemarle County public school funding in an escrow account until allocations are clear based on how many school bus drivers do you have, based on how many teachers you have, and based on dropping enrollment? Should that money be by 6 people, 6 Board of Supervisors,
Yeah.
allocate the money to a school board? Before the Board of Supervisors allocate that money, should that money then put in essentially financial purgatory
Right.
and say, until these problems are solved, we're not going to give you school board this money?
Yeah. That sounds good. I like the sound of it. I worry about the trickle-down effect of that.
Okay.
Like, will it hurt teachers? Will it hurt staff members? So that would be my concern. But, I mean, we have to hold them accountable somehow. They've got to be, there has to be some consequence if you're not spending money wisely and if you can't even account for the millions of dollars that you've been given.
Or willing to show taxpayers and parents where the money is being spent without threat. For a good example here, I'm getting, and I'm going to cut to the chase, I'm getting responses from Matthew Haas, the superintendent, and answers without a FOIA request. And the reason I'm getting that is because I have a large following on social media. And I'm leveraging the influence that I have to get answers to the questions I have immediately. And that's not fair. Moms and dads that don't have influence should still be able to get the same kind of response time and answers as people that do have influence. And the only reason Matthew Haas in the superintendent office is going to give me this information on financing with rebranding without a FOIA request is because he knows a lot of people follow this show. And that's not democratic, and that's not fair, and that's not the way it should be.
Right.
I mean, do you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
I noticed in his response to you that he said, we hope to do better.
Yeah.
We hope to do better than his five days.
Right.
And just hearing somebody from the school district say, we hope to do better, I was like, well, that's lovely. That'd be great if you could.
Right. Here's Danny O'Day. He is 26 years old. His fiance is a teacher, and I won't say where. And Danny's got a very different perspective on this. Does not have children yet, but still I'm open-minded to all perspectives, even from folks that don't have kids. He says, whether you guys realize it or not, you are having a conversation about the nature of local government. We function under a trusteeship-style governance model wherein we elect representatives and entrust them to act in our best interest. For example...
Absolutely, I agree.
I agree with that, but then it goes,
Yeah.
For example, Meg, the poll released to Jewett parents, regardless of result, is part of an information gathering system that, whether we like it or not, is not ultimately the same as a vote. We issue referendums on their ability to accurately represent our interests through elections. What this conversation is reflecting is a frustration with the trusteeship model and a desire for a direct democratic feedback, just worth keeping in mind when having these conversations. So he's basically saying that while these survey results indicate don't name change, that the survey
They're not
results...
binding.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. I agree with that. It's just a survey. It's not a vote. But we did vote these school board members in, right? And they're supposed to be representing us and our best interests. And they're not listening to us. And time again, they put out these surveys and they do the opposite of what the survey indicates. It's as though they think that they've just been given carte blanche and they are the ultimate arbiters of what is right and good in our schools, and they know better than we do, so they're going to go ahead and make the decision for us. But if you listen to the school board meetings, you know, they show their hand, and they show that they are actually not, they don't have a working knowledge of a lot of the things that they're voting on. So there was one particular school board meeting that was very well attended, and it was like a lottery to be able to speak at the school board meeting, and you could only speak for 2 minutes or something like that. And it was about a controversial policy, and as you know from watching school board meetings, there's like the open comment period, and then there's a period where the school board members are talking amongst themselves and we get to watch. And one of the school board members said, after hearing all of these comments, said the majority of speakers were strong supporters of the program. So a friend of mine took issue with that. She was like, I'm not sure that's true, that it was a majority of the speakers. So she went back and she watched the school board meeting again, and also you can access the log of like who signed up to speak. And so she counted how many speakers. There were 32 speakers, 33 public comments, excuse me, and 16 were opposed, 17 were in favor. So this school board member came away from that comment period saying, like, really the majority of people love this program. It's like one. You had it by one. 17 support it, 16 opposed it. But that was her takeaway from it. That's not listening to the people who elected you.
That's called spin, right?
Right, absolutely.
Is that spin?
Oh, of course it is.
Kevin Higgins in Greenwood. The Albemarle County Public School leadership is void of servant leadership, in my opinion. Most of our world-class teachers have dreamed of teaching kids since they were young kids, and what is happening now is total disservice to those dreams. We need to embrace our teachers and protect their dream. We need to champion our teachers. We have the dream team, treat them accordingly. In fact, give operational leadership of buses rebranding to the teachers. Guarantee all of this is fixed quickly. The fact that we don't have a mass exodus of teachers right now is shocking to me. This county better realize that soon, or this storm is going to take pause with an eye right over us. And that's a great comment. And I know Kevin Higgins is championing teachers. Meg is championing teachers. We undoubtedly are in favor of the frontline people, the teachers and the bus drivers, get them more money, get them more resources. And I also want to emphasize this, and I'm going to throw this to you here and give you plenty of time to talk about this. I understand that Kale and Sutherland have had very sketchy pasts.
Yes.
And I understand that some of the stuff that they've done in the past is racist and it's wrong and it's nothing that I stand for. Do not spin this by saying that I am championing the history of racists and want their names on schools. That is not what I'm doing. Instead, what I'm saying is we have to get kids to school on time in an equitable learning environment that's fair to students that are black, white, Puerto Rican, or Haitian, whatever the skin color is. We need equity in the classroom, and right now we're failing at that. So instead of changing signs and rebranding, why don't we allocate the money to getting a full fleet of bus drivers and getting more teachers in the classroom? That's all I'm saying.
But if you dare criticize,
you're called a racist.
You're a bigot.
Yeah.
You're a racist, and you know it's such a it's so predictable, and it's such a transparent and lazy thing that they do, because it's basically saying, it's like holding up a sign that's like, I'm not really ready to debate you on the actual issue, so I'm just going to call you mean names and make you spin your wheels defending your integrity and maybe even your livelihood rather than debate the actual issues with you.
I know firsthand what that is like. Okay, and I just literally posted the screenshots on Twitter. Charlottesville Twitter is a place that I'm having a hard time even understanding or recognizing anymore in Charlottesville.
I'm not on social media.
Twitter is a different kind of place. And this is literally what I got from the Twitter account. And most of this stuff happens from nameless Twitter accounts with people that don't have their face in their profile picture. All the content that I post on social media has the name Jerry Miller by it and my picture.
Right.
It's not some fake emoji with a fake name. So this literally came in from CVille for Reasonable Health Insurance. It says, if Twitter had existed in the era of social desegregation, this is what segregationist resistance would have looked like. And post my screenshots that I sent to Dr. Matthew Haas. Clear echoes from that period. The outrage at taking steps to make schools more equitable, outrage at removing the names of segregationists. And I've gotten to the point where I'm not even going to defend myself to stuff like this anymore because it's not worth my time. I've emphasized on ilovecville.com, I am not in favor of the behavior of Kale, of Sutherland, and some of these other folks that undoubtedly have sketchy pasts. However, I am in favor of getting kids to school on time and teaching them in an equitable setting. And according to the SOL results, we are not doing that. And as Meg pointed out, and I'm passing this to you here in 5-10 seconds, as Meg pointed out, the children that are suffering the most are the ones the school system, pomp and circumstance, is trying to champion the most. So they're failing the ones they're trying to champion. Show is yours anywhere you want to go.
So, you know, everybody who's championing an equitable education, okay, so show us the results. How's it going? You know, what are the metrics? How are you going to measure whether or not your policies are successful? And they don't have a clear answer on that. You know, we're putting a lot of money towards that. First of all, they don't have, so grading policies are another thing that they're changing a lot. And this is something that a lot of parents are worked up about. So first of all, they're doing de-leveling, like they're getting rid of, you know, advanced classes and stuff like that.
Homework, testing,
right. So
advanced classes.
Equity grading,
yeah.
Which is
otherwise called social promotion in my book.
It is. It's also a huge burden on teachers. So, you know, teachers need to plan out their semester. They need to say, like, all right, I'm giving this exam or this assignment then, and I'll grade it, and then I'll give the next one. Now, students can turn in things whenever, and so teachers are going to find themselves at the end of a quarter with a mountain of grading to do, and you know, a fraction of time to do it. It's not fair to teachers. It's not good for students. And the research on this is thin. And when pushed on it, they cannot show you good studies to defend these policies. And in fact, one school board representative actually told somebody, you know, so a community member shared a lot of really compelling research saying, like, hey, de-leveling is a bad idea. It's been done elsewhere and abandoned because it you know, ended so poorly for them. And this school board member basically responded, you know, what's more important to me than the research you showed is our experience here. Like, what is that? So
yeah.
We're just not paying attention to research anymore? We don't look at data to inform our decisions and our policies?
Well said. Well said. Neil Williamson says this, and then we'll get Joey Rifkin in the mix here. He's a product of the Albemarle County Public School System. Neil Williamson is the president of the Free Enterprise Forum. We have the Daily Progress, NBC 29, and CBS 19 watching the show as we speak. Neil Williamson says, government by the people requires the people. In 2021, there were a number of uncontested races for the Albemarle County School Board and the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. Yeah. So Neil's comment basically is like, we're getting what our engagement was.
I couldn't agree more. And so many of us have had our heads in the sand for a long time, and it's time to wake up and get involved. and run for school board, be involved in your local races.
Carol Thorpe, the Queen of Jack Jewett. Then we go to Joey Rifkin on the 3-shot. The Queen of Jack Jewett says, how many school board members and county supervisors, for that matter, run unopposed for re-election every single election cycle? This breeds the arrogance and sense of security that these so-called representatives have in their positions. Parents and voters have no leverage to throw out the people. She chose a different term. I'm going to change it to throw out the people, so to speak. If no one challenges those in power. Carol Thorpe, I mean, you know what? Those are two very good comments. And I read them on air. It's like, we made the bed we're in.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
we made the bed we're in.
People have to wake up.
Now we have to wake up.
Yeah, and do something about it.
Well said. Joey, 3-shot. Anywhere you want to go here, product of Albemarle County Public School System. Show is yours, Joey.
Well, I mean, something that really all right, I'm taking that out. Something that stood out to me just in listening to the both of you, I'll go over here real quick that I want to touch on is the $18,000 per pupil. So just to clarify, that is $18,000 per student is what they're saying?
Yeah. By the way, I misspoke. So that's not up from 13 last year. It's up from 15 last year.
Okay.
I checked my notes.
That's a lot of money.
So I'd imagine it was probably somewhere in the realm of 11, 12, 10 when I was in school. And man, I just don't see where, if it's up to 18, I haven't stepped foot in the Albemarle County Public School in years now, of course, but man, even just thinking about $10,000 for me as a student, I don't see where that money is going, and
Right.
I think
And
a
where
big
has the increased money going? Like who's,
Well, that too.
who's feeling that? Like our teachers? Are teachers feeling that increase of money somehow? I don't think so.
I mean, I surely don't know. I would
not
like to
much.
know. I would also like to know why all the rebranding cost isn't so easily accessible, why it's all so spread out.
That's fishy.
I mean, what it seems like to me is when you look into some sort of scam and find out it's disguised under one shell company after another shell company. It's like, why is this so hard to find? You would think the amount of money that they've spent, they would want, it to be easy to get the receipts back for that.
Yeah, especially when the public is asking the question. Well said, Joey. Comments coming in fast and furious here. And Katie highlights this, and I didn't know this. So this is my apologies to Meg. I should have introduced her as Dr. Meg Bryce. She is a PhD from the University of Virginia.
I do.
Okay, so my apologies. I did not know that.
Please, I would not have wanted to be introduced.
No, seriously, I had no idea.
That's okay.
Okay, no, you deserve that. I mean, she's got a PhD from UVA. Dr. Meg Bryce, okay? That's how I refer to her from here on out. And then in the post-production, are you changing the lower third? He's literally changing the nameplate. No, we don't. You earned it.
Okay, thank
We're
you.
going to change the nameplate literally on the fly. We did not know that, and we'll do that in the post-production copy. Thank you. Joey Rifkin, you're fantastic. Dr. Meg Bryce with the PhD from the University of Virginia. All right, everyone says this. Jerry, you got this platform, and you're hollering and hooting about this stuff going on. Give us solutions to fix it. Let's go there. Solutions to fix it. Dr. Bryce, the show is yours.
Replace the school board. We need new school board members, desperately. The school board members I don't think that they're doing their job. I don't think that they know what they're voting on. There was one meeting in particular where this was actually the same meeting where there were 33 comments, 16 opposed, 17 in favor. And their takeaway was like, people love us, we're doing a great job, they love this policy. At the conclusion of that meeting, several of the members seemed to not really know what the curriculum was, like what was in the curriculum that they were discussing and voting on. One of them said, and I'm quoting directly from this meeting, "I don't know a lot about the program, but I feel like it's pretty operational." Great. So she voted for it. Another school board member said that he didn't really know when the rollout happened. "I don't recall hearing about it ahead of time." And then one of the school board members asked the board to review the slide decks if they hadn't. So as if to imply that the material hadn't, as if to acknowledge hey, you guys probably haven't reviewed this yet, but you should before we vote. This is not responsible. this is not what we expect of people that we elected. So if you don't like it, stop just, standing by and like putting your kid on the bus and thinking everything's okay. You got to pay attention. Let's get some new people to run for school board, and let's get some fresh life in there,
Danny has this comment. This is a straightforward one, and it's fine. He's challenging us, and you did it in a fair way, Danny. I have no problem with this comment. He says, I don't think most people in this community are actually championing racists, but the truth is, and I think if you're being honest with yourself and you admit it, in this particular moment, you find yourself in a mutual battle alongside some of the most bigoted members of this community. He says, personally, I actually agree with both you guys on this point. We need to be very critical about our priorities and make sure we have our house in order before we're worried about painting the porch. But I also think that we need to be careful about and conscious about these issues when discussing whether or not to honor these folks who have had their names on the buildings for many, many years.
I don't disagree with any of that.
Yeah.
Is there racism in Albemarle County? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes. And it is a problem, and it's an evil that needs to be addressed. Do I think changing the names of a couple middle schools is going to tackle the issue of racism? No,
Yeah.
I don't. I don't think it's going to move the needle.
I don't think it's going to move the needle at all.
Frankly, I think it's like a little insulting to pretend that it would. I think if you are not doing right by the communities that are suffering from racism, then you have no business wasting time and resources on something like renaming schools.
Good Lord, that's so well said. And that is so, common sense.
Yeah.
That is just literally, that's common sense, right?
Right. I think so.
I think so. Suzanne Daly, does anyone know if the new family life recommendations were passed? I can't find it anywhere. I spoke at a recent school board meeting, but it's possible my comments happen after the school board vote. Any insight on that?
I don't know about that. I do know that they were proposing that boys and girls in the lower schools have sex ed together.
Fourth graders are doing sex ed together, boys and girls in the same class because of a teacher shortage.
Oh, it's because of a teacher shortage.
What do you think about boys and girls learning in the same class, sex ed, in fourth grade?
I think that's a terrible idea, and I find it hard to believe that there's no better solution. Again, I think more of our teachers than to just be like, oh yeah, I guess there's no other solution than to have them in the same class for sex ed. I am convinced that Murray Elementary, and I don't mean to throw shade on other elementary schools in the district. I'm sure that there are other wonderful elementary schools, but my
Absolutely.
only experience was with Murray.
Sure.
And I swear that it was the best place in the state to have been during virtual school. I saw those teachers hustle. I saw them come up with creative solutions to a ton of things. And so don't tell me that teachers and the boots on the ground people can't come up with a better solution than collapsing sex ed into boys and girls together in one class.
Yeah. I was 10 years old in the
I
fourth
think that
grade,
they're
and I was
probably-
old for my class. There were
Yeah.
9 years old in fourth grade. The fact that sex ed is happening at 9 and 10
Yeah.
with both sexes in the same class, I just can't understand the
My
awkwardness.
guess is that that's a lazy solution, a lazy response to trying to figure out what to do with transgender students in sex ed classes. That's my guess.
Here's a great comment from Bob Yarborough in Redfields. I can't imagine a more challenging yet critical role in American society these days than being a school board member. I'm very interested in what Dr. Bryce sees as an ideal candidate and what views they might represent. It's a good question.
School board, as far as views, I think that's a loaded question. A school board member should be apolitical. Your view should be to provide the best possible education for the students, every student in this community. So the qualities that I would like to see, somebody that is eager to engage with parents and actually heed some of their advice and some of their concerns. and somebody who wants to put academic excellence as the first priority. Somebody wrote recently in an email exchange I was reading, and I won't share their name, but I'd love to give them credit. I won't share their name because I didn't get their permission before. But they said, when the number one goal of a school is not educational quality, the outcome is a mediocre education. I don't know if he was quoting somebody else.
100%.
But that really struck me. I mean, that's absolutely true. And if we are giving a mediocre education, we're giving it to everybody. And that's not going to benefit the people that all of these policies are meant to benefit. It's a disservice to every student in the community. So I want school board members who are going to be fiscally responsible, who are going to listen to parents, and who are going to focus on academic excellence.
Oh, God, hallelujah. Let me ask you this, and I promise you we won't get political, and this is the only one that I'm going to get political, because I think we're the same. Like, people ask constantly, like, Jerry, what party do you most align with? And my response to that is, I just align with the party of common sense. And I'm fiscally conservative, socially liberal, and willing to listen to learn. And I just go about my life in a common sense fashion. And I'm not asking you what party, anything like that. I'm just curious of how you go about it ideologically. And you don't have to say party or anything like that, but just in general, because I think it's similar.
I'm a small c conservative, so I like small government. I like parental rights. I like, I want people to be able to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
And that's what's not going on here right now, and that's what is upsetting to me.
Right.
And we've given so much power to, there's so much bureaucracy right now that teachers' hands are tied, and they can't do the wonderful things that they're capable of because they're having to jump through so many hoops. And another thing that people should know is that the number of school days has actually been cut down in recent years. So in the 2018-2019 school year, there were 178 days on the calendar. So it was like 180, but 4 of those were half days, so a total of 178 days. And there were 6 teacher work days, 6.5 professional development days. In 2022-2023, so this school year, there are 174 days on the calendar, which also includes a couple half days. So we've gone down 4 days of instruction, which seems to be a problem since there's learning loss, right? So there are 4 fewer days of school, but now there are 14 teacher work days and 4.5 days of professional development, and then 3.5 days of professional learning community. That's a lot for teachers. So teachers are working more, teaching less in person. I don't know. I haven't talked to teachers about how they feel about this, so I shouldn't speak for them. But to me, that seems like a burden on teachers, and it doesn't seem to benefit students.
Kevin says cut those days by 1/3 with the current bus situation if it's not improved.
Right. Yeah, especially for the Western feeder pattern.
Yeah. I mean, that's bananas. All right, we are an hour and 15 minutes in, and you've absolutely crushed it. I want to do some quick-hitting topics so we get as many of these as possible here.
Sure.
There's many in the community are fearing this, and I learned this from Neil Williamson, who's watching the program right now. Neil, are you still watching the show? I believe you are. He's the president of the Free Enterprise Forum, and he does amazing work. I learned this, and it scared the bejeebus out of me. Albemarle County Public Schools, by state code, technically does not have to provide school buses and transportation for its students.
I heard you say that recently on a show, yeah.
And he referenced it on this network, and then we had a number of viewers and listeners find the actual state code language that justified what he said. So the fear is that Haas and Albemarle County are just going to be like, you know what? We're just not going to do school buses now.
Yeah. I do know that, some people don't, aren't eligible for a school bus because of the exact location they live in. Like, almost they're too close to the school, so they could walk to the school. I think that's a legitimate fear. But in most instances, that would be like more like underprivileged communities that would not be receiving bus service. So I would hope that they would not do that.
Yeah. Thank you. very well said. You're killing this. Like, the ones that need the bus service the most
Right.
are the ones that are often on the financial margin
Right.
or underrepresented students.
And it, it was the same with COVID policies, that those who suffered the most were the minority students, the underprivileged students. The people of means hired teachers to teach a pod, and they were supplementing their kids' education in other ways. It was the people who couldn't take time off of work and had to be gone during the day, and so they had to just plop their kid in front of a screen and hope that they stayed there for school all day. Those are the ones that suffered the most, and it's criminal what we did.
Do you want to touch the vouchers at all?
I don't know enough about vouchers to have, I know this isn't a very popular thing to say, but I don't think that I know enough to have an educated opinion on it.
No, that's fair. It's completely fair.
My gut is that I would like them, because it's giving more rights to parents, more choice to parents, but I don't know the economics of that and how it affects the school system.
Nancy Muir has sent us this email. I'm concerned about muting two-sided conversations in Albemarle County Public Schools. Teachers are penalized if they represent or present a viewpoint that does not agree with the liberal POV point of view. One teacher who's a friend had a tiny magnet in support of Governor Youngkin in their personal workspace of her school workspace. She was chastised and called out for it. Other teachers have display signs for BLM, LGBTQ, and signs that disparage the Republican Party, and it has not been called out by anyone in the front office. That's an email that came in to our inbox moments ago. Why don't we go in conclusion here and have you able to go in any direction you want. I think you're fantastic. I hope that you come back again. You're phenomenal in this setting. Anywhere you want to go, any topic you want to cover that hasn't been covered so far.
I think we've covered everything that, all of the big issues that I wanted to. Really, I just want to encourage parents to pay attention, and not just parents, actually. Like, everybody in the community, every voter should be paying attention. Please watch school board meetings. These are your tax dollars, and we have a responsibility to make sure that they are being properly spent. And I fear that there is just a gross misuse of our funds right now, and that it is ultimately damaging like an entire generation of kids. And that's on us as adults, as voters, to make sure that that's not the case.
A new generation's about to get damaged by it.
Yeah.
I mean, our 4.5-year-old's about to go potentially into this.
Yeah.
He's in pre-K 4 right now. Michael Stroback, thanks for doing all this, Meg. Viewers and listeners watching the program, when you see Dr. Bryce around town, give her some props, stop her, tell her job well done. I mean, she literally was here on air in front of cameras and a microphone for an hour and 20 minutes, and this is not easy. And I can assure you that some of the responses she gets from doing this for an hour and 20 minutes aren't going to be the most friendly.
No.
So
I'm ready for it.
She knows that she's ready for it. It's not even going to bother her.
I'm making enemies.
But a lot of the response that she is going to get from doing this for an hour and 20 minutes, that I know firsthand, is going to be incredibly welcoming and positive, and thank you, because it takes a lot of courage to do what she just did. Okay, a lot of courage. Anything else? If we didn't get to comments, I mean, I'm seeing at least 60 or 70 that we didn't get to. I apologize for that. It's an hour and 20 minutes in here. Anything else you want to cover before we go?
No, I think that's great. I feel good about what we discussed. I hope this kind of wakes people up and energizes people to become more involved.
Thank you. Scott in Virginia Beach, thank you, Meg, for bringing common sense to the table. Scott.
Well, Jerry, I want to thank you for really shedding light on this issue.
Thank you.
I'm excited about where this could lead, and the additional people that we can get involved to hopefully benefit our schools.
That's all we're trying to do. Thank you very much for saying that. Joey Rifkin, the director. Dr. Bryce just hit a grand slam. My name is Jerry Miller. This show is the I Love CVille Show. It's archived wherever you get your podcasts. It's on every social media platform possible. It's going to go out to an e-newsletter list that has about 138,000 folks on it tomorrow. Thank you kindly for watching the program, and we're back with Real Talk, the talk show at 10:15 a.m. tomorrow, Friday, here in the I Love CVille Network. So long, everybody, and take care.